All right, guys, welcome back to the long game. For this episode, I have another special guest, and this guy, his story fits our theme perfectly. It's a guy who has lived the corporate life as well, left it, built a coaching business, and his coaching business is around strength, it's around endurance, overall fitness. He's a multi-time Boston Marathon finisher. And honestly, he's a guy that just helps everyday athletes like you and me chase really big goals. A couple years back, I worked with John on trying to qualify for Boston again. And I'm actually here in Sacramento in a hotel, and I was running the other day, and it reminded me about how strong I felt going into that marathon. Unfortunately, I got sick and wasn't able to finish that marathon in the time that I needed, but I know that it's there, right? I know that I can build
Yeah.
that fitness back, and this is a guy that helped me, build that fitness. So please, John, if you could give us an intro, let us know how what the long first of all what does the long game mean for you, and then we can go into your background and everything.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me, Mark, man. It's like I've been, like I was telling you earlier, like, listening to all the other episodes, and I'm like, man, we're on the same freaking wavelength. You know what I mean? With you and me and Joe and Chad and Eric, and I don't even know Joe and Chad, but or Eric and Chad, but just hearing how they navigate and wiggle through life and talking about their stuff, I'm like, I can totally relate, so with Chad and running his business and how, what he sees in his athletes and his clientele and stuff like that. And obviously, I've been working and rocking with Joe for the longest and stuff. So, um, yeah, you know what I mean? And, you talking about transitioning, to still wanting to be an athlete, but like, sort of taking the edge off of it and not being so like dead centered on training only and like forgetting everything else.
Right,
You're right. And keeping a better
right.
equity and better balance with everything in life. And then like I feel like the last, I don't know, week or two, I've been having these conversations about, the long game and like what
Right, right.
where you're at with the balance in your life of health and fitness and family and everything else, and so yeah, like for me, like it's a non-negotiable, I think, at this point, of I don't care whether you like to work out or not, but you got to do it, right?
Right,
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, there's
right,
so much
right,
other
right.
stuff we commit ourselves to of like, I don't want to do this or I don't want to do that, but you go to work every day even though you don't want to, right? You get up,
Yeah,
you brush your
absolutely.
teeth,
You brush your
you know,
teeth, right? Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's a
Right.
habit. You tell your kids,
Yeah.
I don't care if you don't want to, you got to go do X, Y, and Z. You got to eat your
Right.
vegetables, right? So,
Right.
like, at
Absolutely.
some point, we need to like treat ourselves like our own like we're our own kids still, and telling ourselves,
Yeah.
I don't care if you don't
Yeah.
want to do it, you have to go do it, and put that sort of like discipline and finding that mental shift to coming to terms that you know fitness has to be a part of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that answer. I think before we jumped on this call, I talked about a couple of, friends that had passed away in
Yeah.
the recent years, and um I don't want to say, these things could have been completely, prevented,
Yeah.
but I do think prioritizing your health and your fitness, kind of keeps the bad stuff away, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
proven scientifically. I was reading an article the other day about how, leg strength, just
Hmm.
leg strength, right, by
Yeah.
itself can help determine like your
Right.
longevity and how long you
Right.
live, right?
Right.
And I'm like, dude, I got the big legs, right? So hopefully I get up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But obviously it doesn't guarantee anything, right? So
Right.
you not we can't take our time here on Earth for
Hmm.
granted, and
Hmm.
and that's a little bit again like what we talked about before we jumped on the call is we got to make it a priority, not just for ourselves, not just for your clients, right? But we
Right.
also have to make sure that our family and our friends understand that it's just like brushing your teeth, right? It's
Yeah.
fitness hygiene, right?
Right. Yeah.
um
Yeah. Well, it's also too like, you know, you being a coach, and stuff too, we talk about controlling your controllables, right? When it
Yeah,
comes to like race
absolutely.
day, like, uh, leading into a big race or a big event, like what can I control? I
Right.
can control my training. I can control my nutrition. I can control, making sure I know everything about a race I can. And now all you're left with of the uncontrollable is the weather and how, the actual race
Right.
itself. Right?
Right.
Like
Right.
you
Right.
can't mess with the weather.
Right.
You could try to prep for
Right.
the weather and look ahead and
Right.
stuff, but ultimately
Yeah.
there's things that are out of your control. And
Yeah.
likewise with health and fitness, what are our controllables, right? We could put the
Right.
work in. We can manage our sleep better. And I love that whole conversation you had about that a couple episodes back. We
Yeah.
can manage getting the workouts in and all these things, to make sure the blood work is as healthy as possible. But you're
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's controlling your
Yeah.
controllables, and everything else is like
Yeah.
hopefully I don't get hit by a bus kind of stuff,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Absolutely.
know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned that because a couple of years ago, I used to travel a lot for work, and most of the hotels that we would stay in would have like a full on gym and
Right.
usually a pretty decent place to run. Coming back to Sacramento, we're actually like in just a block away from the capital. And so there's
Nice.
plenty of places to run around here. The gym here at the Marriott is super nice. But I prep myself, right? I was like, all right,
Right.
what workouts can I get done? Am I going
Hmm.
to be able to get my swim in? Is there a Peloton, bike there that I can use? So like I was ready, and like you said, you control your controllables. Now
Right.
I also looked at the weather and I'm like, okay, weather's good. I'm going to be able to run outside. If things were to shift, then you just shift along with it, right? And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know. It again, it's a part of my life, so I just make sure that like I understand like what my situation is going to be and adapt,
Right.
when I need to.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
bro,
Yeah.
I want to take us back, right,
Uh-huh.
to like, you know, where'd you grow up? What was John like before endurance sports? And then I know a little bit about your background. Like I know you went to Cal, just down the road from where I'm at right here.
Yeah.
Well, a few miles, but
Yeah.
and then you come back, right? And
Hmm.
take us through uh that whole series and your young athletic life.
Man, okay, so grew up in Paradise Hills over in Southeast San Diego,
Yep, yep,
born and raised. Um,
yep.
went to Morris, as a kid, did all the high school sports because it kept me out of gangs. It kept me from like running the streets more than
Exactly,
I
exactly.
was on my, like, yeah, I got into trouble here and there and did dirt, whatever, but
I think all of us did.
not
Yeah.
yeah, right, but nowhere compared to like people we know, like
Right, right, right,
like
right.
but there was enough family drama going on at home. I was like, I don't need to add on top of that, so,
Right,
and the gang
right, right,
stuff
right.
wasn't my cup of tea. That wasn't my bag. I
Yeah,
knew that early on
yeah,
in junior high. I was like,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not that dude,
yeah,
so
yeah,
the
yeah,
sports really kept me kept me occupied and kept me
yeah,
from
absolutely.
doing worse stuff. But
Right, right,
you
right.
know, uh, at some point, you realize your junior year, you're like, sports in college probably isn't going to happen. Like, coach, recruiters aren't coming out. Like, we had enough star athletes where
Right,
you were seeing that
right,
happening,
right.
around you, and I'm like, well, nobody's coming to see me, but I'm really good. Like in
Yeah,
the small
right, right,
pond, I'm
right,
really good in the small
right,
pond.
right,
I was winning
right.
a couple of
Absolutely.
championships and league
Right,
races and wrestling events, but you know um so at some point I figured, okay, well, that's it. High sports is over. I got to Cal, uh and the best I did was sign up for a gym class every semester because it was like it'll force me to go to the gym,
right,
at
right,
least
right,
because
right,
I'm
right.
getting credit for
Yeah,
it. So it was an easy
right,
A because it's
right,
gym class, right?
right, 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 right.
And at least it forced me to go 2 3 days a week, to the
Yeah,
gym. So that was
yeah,
sort of the thing I did. And then my junior year, I was probably out of all the sports I did in high school between football and cross country, track, and wrestling, like I was probably a better
Right.
wrestler out of all of them. I was too
Oh, okay. I
too
didn't
big
know
for
that. All right.
yeah, I was too big for cross country, at 130
Oh,
pounds.
yeah. Yeah.
But I'm not 100
Yeah.
pounds for cross country. I was too,
Yeah.
same thing for distance, middle distance track. I'm too big, too small for football because 140 playing football isn't going to work.
Right.
Um,
Right. Right.
and so wrestling was sort of the good sport, but Cal didn't have a wrestling team. But junior year, I found out they had a boxing team, and
Okay. Okay.
I was like, okay, well, you know, conditioning for wrestling and boxing is just the same. It's just as intense and
Right. Right. Right.
whatever.
Right.
And in boxing, at least I'm just getting my face beat. you know, I'm not, because wrestling, I mean,
Yeah.
you're getting tossed, you're getting, your
Right.
neck's
Right. Right.
getting
Right. Right.
jammed up, and
Right.
like wrestling is having done both because I did boxing at Cal for 2 years, my junior senior year.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I can arguably say like wrestling is a lot harder of a practice, of a sport than boxing is.
Yeah. It's
You know,
it's a constant stress, right? Like you're always trying to move. The
right.
creativity is, yeah, insane. I I,
Yeah.
I kept getting invited to wrestling practice all throughout high
Yeah.
school. I'm like, no, like
Oh, you
no.
would have
I
killed
don't,
it. You would have killed it.
yeah, I think about it now, and I'm like, ah, yeah, I probably should have wrestled.
Yeah, yeah. Because you were
Uh,
playing football too. So like,
yep,
it helped,
yep, yep,
that's
yep.
why I signed up for wrestling because I wanted to be better at football, but
Yeah,
yeah, you know.
but it's funny that you transition into boxing too. You heard um the podcast episode with Joe,
Yeah.
and how he kind of fell into boxing. Obviously, like growing up in the 80s and 90s, right? Like boxing was just a big thing, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
for
Tyson,
yeah,
you
exactly,
know?
man.
Yeah.
Tyson and all those guys, and so it was interesting that I became interested in boxing. So like, at what level of boxing did you end up kind of like competing at? Did you compete with
Yeah.
other colleges, or was it? Oh man, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, it was a full ass, boxing team.
wow, okay,
Yeah, so, it's a club sport, so it's not like, we were like getting funding or anything like that. But
yeah, but
we would
still,
we
yeah.
would box University of Nevada at Reno, go to tournaments
Oh,
out
okay,
there.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It is college boxing, so you got headgear on, so you're getting
Right, right,
beat up, but not,
right,
not straight up, the face.
right, right, right.
I had Mills Lane, the famous like referee. He refed one of my
Oh, no
matches
kidding.
because he just happened to be in Reno for whatever other event
Oh,
he was
that's too
at, and he
funny.
found out that
Yeah.
there was a boxing tournament with us and a bunch of other schools, and he ended up like guest refereeing because he was just that dude to want to do that stuff. And so he hopped in and
Oh, that's cool.
refed, my match. So I was like, oh shit, I got Mills Lane out here,
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's
yeah,
cox That's cool.
yeah. And
That's
of
cool.
course, it's the '90s, so of course I don't have any pictures of it. So Gen Xers,
I
we weren't
know.
taking pictures of nothing. So
I
yeah,
know. I know. I know there's a bunch of stuff that my kids don't believe that I did, and I'm just like, I don't know. I no
yeah,
camera, so no
yeah.
no proof. Um, so you were boxing.
hmm
Did you maintain kind of your endurance fitness? Were you still running at that time while you were still at Cal, or did that come like
No,
after you left Cal?
totally after. I mean, I think I was burnt out from track and cross country. So obviously, you're conditioning for boxing, and so you got
Right,
to
right,
run.
right,
But
right.
I wasn't nowhere on that level of like I wasn't, in high school and stuff. So,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah.
and then again, I was working two jobs, taking a full course load, and had an
Right, right.
internship. So, living
Yeah,
off of Red Bulls and coffee, and so just, so it was like the time crunch
yeah.
wasn't there to
Right.
really put in like,
Yeah,
more than what I was
yeah,
doing. So, yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
So take us to like after Cal, you graduate, and then where do you land? You're back home,
No, I lived
or
up in the
did
Bay
you stay?
Area.
Did you stay up in the Bay Area for a bit?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. I decided to place roots there. So I moved over
okay,
to Oakland after I
okay.
graduated from Cal. So I lived in Oakland for like, I don't know, I lived in the Bay Area for about 10 years or so. So
Nice,
another
nice.
6 in Oakland, and just sort of, had a job. I
Yeah, yeah,
graduated, got a job, you know, working at a music store. So that felt really great. Making, I
yeah,
graduated top college in the world and, one of the
yeah,
top schools in the
yeah,
world, and I'm working at a music store. So,
yeah.
but eventually started working in the music industry. I was working in radio already in college, interning there for a while. And so was able to use those sort of connects to, work for a record label and did that for a few
Oh, very
years.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And eventually did that till about '05, and then you know uh moved to LA and worked in the movie industry for a few years in LA. um you know because
Now, throughout
yeah.
all that time that you're working in the music industry and moving to LA in the
Hmm.
movie industry, did you maintain like any, any resemblance of like what you were doing athletically as a
No,
boxer or even like
no,
going out for short runs? Really? Okay.
no, I
Okay.
mean, I had a gym membership to 24.
Okay.
I did,
Okay.
and I would go on the days that they had whatever membership where it was like, if you pay whatever $20 a month, you can go Monday, Wednesday, Fridays.
Right.
That was
I
the
remember those.
that was, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's all I can
Yeah.
afford. And so Monday, Wednesday,
Right.
Fridays, I would go to the gym and get a workout in.
Right.
But
Right.
I would
Right.
run
Right.
around Lake Merritt, which is like the big like lake in Oakland downtown, because I live close to there. So I would get a little run in here and there. I had actually when I was living in Oakland still, a older coworker of mine, and by older, he's probably my age now, but I'm like 25, so like,
Okay. Okay.
but he had signed up for a triathlon, and somehow the energies worked out where like NBC Sports, on the Sunday, and like they were talking about I think it was the Iron Nun, and I didn't even know it was the Iron Nun back then,
Oh
but they were doing
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
a piece on her and how she was doing a
Right.
triathlon and she was like
Right.
60
Right.
or
Right. Right.
whatever.
Yeah. I
And
remember
I'm
that.
sitting there, drinking a beer probably and eating like shit, and I'm like, I'm 25. Like, if
Right.
she can do it, why can't
Yeah.
I, right? And at the same time,
Exactly.
my coworker's
Exactly.
trying to sign up for this triathlon, so I spent uh that summer, it was like '03, I think, training for a triathlon. So I did a Olympic
Okay.
distance try. uh he got hurt somewhere along the way with training, so it eventually
Of
just fell on
course.
me. So,
Of
and I was like,
course.
well, I already paid for the race and I'm committed. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I, I did the try, and I really liked it. I knew nothing about it. I did it on a mountain bike.
Right. 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 Right.
I did it
Yeah.
in November on Treasure Island. So if you know the Bay Area,
Oh
it's
my
already cold
God.
and cloudy, and the
Right.
water's
Right. Right.
always
Right.
cold.
Right.
So
Cold.
practice, yeah. So like the water was probably like 55 on race morning,
Right.
uh,
Right. Right.
you
Right.
know, and it's cold on Treasure Island because you're in the middle of the bay and the wind's blowing. So you're freezing on the bike because you're soggy out the water. I had a surfing wetsuit. I knew nothing about triathlon. So like I have
Oh
no
my God.
flexibility to,
Yeah.
I was
Right. Right.
second to last out the water, you know. You
Yeah.
know? But
That's too fun. Yeah.
I got
Those
it done.
stories, man. I mean, yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I've heard that story, I feel like 100 times from different triathletes, and
Yeah.
triathlon's hard, man. Like triathlon's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
You probably didn't grow up a swimmer like I did. I
No.
mean, we're so close to the water growing up in Paradise Hills, but
Yeah.
I just didn't swim, right? Like I
Hmm.
surfed and bodyboarded, but I wasn't like a
Yeah.
swimmer. And so
Right. Right.
first time I actually tried to swim like 100 meters straight, I mean, I was out of
Gassed.
breath, yeah,
Yeah.
gassed.
Yeah.
So that must have been a really crazy experience doing an international distance race, because an
Yeah.
international distance race, you're talking more than 1,000 meters, right? So
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
25-30 minutes in the water,
Yeah.
and then
If you're lucky.
bike is, if you're lucky,
Yeah.
bike is somewhere, in the whatever hour range, right? Maybe a
Hmm.
little bit over, and then you've got a
Hmm.
10K at the end, right?
Right. Right.
What was your immediate feeling after finishing that race? Like, did you feel like it sounded like you liked it and that you were going to come back and do it again, but how did you,
Yeah.
like, what was the next thing that you did after that race?
I had a good time. I finished like in, I don't know, 3.5 hours, something. So it wasn't
Right,
like
right. It's
great,
a long
you know.
day. Yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah,
was a long
yeah.
day, knew nothing about nutrition, none of that stuff, right? So like,
Right, right,
um,
right.
but I liked it. It was fun. It was a cool experience, and I was like, cool. I should do this again. And
Yeah, yeah.
you know, uh, I'm young enough, and I'm still in the music industry, and all my friends are DJs and promoters because that's what I was doing with that. And I was like, I can either get up at 5 a.m. to go train and
Right,
knock it all out,
right,
or I could come home from the bars and clubs at 5 a.m. and go to sleep.
right. With no
So,
money in your pocket.
yeah, no, I had all the money because we were getting drinks for free
Oh,
because I knew
okay.
we knew all the
Yeah, yeah.
connections and stuff
Right,
like that,
right,
getting
right,
into
right,
clubs
right,
for
right,
free.
right.
So I didn't pay for
Right,
none of that stuff. So obviously I made the easier decision. I was like, I'm gonna go back
right.
to, bar hopping and drinking and hanging out late and doing industry
Yeah.
stuff because it was easier than getting up at 5 a.m. to go train,
Right,
you know.
right, 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 right.
So yeah,
So
I didn't do anything.
was there something that kind of like for me, for example, I was working at I was working at a job where they gave you like a FSA credit like towards
Hmm.
your health savings account or whatever, right? If you took a health exam.
Right,
And it was on site, so I took a health exam. I think they took my blood work and then they did my blood pressure, basically took all my vitals.
yeah,
And then the following week or two, they send you like basically your report.
right,
But they have you sit down with the person and they kind of walk you through it.
right,
Now, like I grew up an athlete, right? Like I played
hmm,
sports from the time that I can remember. And I wasn't good at all sports, but I
yeah,
felt like, you know, uh, like I identified as an athlete.
yeah,
Even even during that time where we had I think my wife and I at that point had maybe a 3 what was that? Yeah, 3-year-old and maybe a
hmm,
newborn. Um, and so, like, the workouts they weren't consistent, but I was in the
yeah,
gym at least, like, twice a week, right?
yeah, yeah,
The the person that was giving me the results, I can't remember if it was a doctor or not, most likely a doctor. He's like, "All right, here's what we're looking at. Your blood pressure is a little bit high. Um, you're kind of like on this pre-diabetic, you're on the fence of being pre-diabetic." And so he's kind
right,
of taking me through all this stuff. He's also like, "Your BMI is up there." I think I was weighing maybe like 190 at the time, and I'm only
uh-huh,
5'6", right? Like,
yeah, yeah,
and so I'm not feeling that way, right? I'm not feeling like I'm unhealthy,
right,
but all these things are telling me like, "Hey, dude, like you got to
yeah,
wake up. You got to get back into some kind of
yeah,
shape." And just like the experience that you had with your friend, or a coworker telling you about this triathlon, I had a friend from high school that went to a different high school, and we just happened to work together, kind of,
right,
stars aligned. And he's in the gym at the same time that I'm in the gym, and this was maybe like a week after I got all my like, health results.
yeah,
And he's like, "Hey, hey, how's everything going?" And we're just chit chatting, and he's like, "Hey," and perfect timing, right? Because we were just talking about this. He goes, "I'm signing up for a half marathon." And I go, "Oh, cool, dude." He was like, "Yeah, it's in April. It's the La Jolla Half Marathon, right?" And I go, "Oh, cool." Like, I had no idea what distance a half marathon was.
right,
I didn't
right,
know like what the course looked like.
yeah,
Very next day, I signed up for the La Jolla Half Marathon. I Google half marathon training plan.
right,
I get the Hal Higdon training plan,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right? The Hal
yeah,
Higdon training plan. I download that.
right,
I'm getting all the runs in. I'm going through all the stuff that as a new runner, like everyone's probably gone through, right? I'm getting shin splints.
right, right,
My shoes like that I've been running in, which I thought were running shoes, aren't the
hmm,
types of running shoes that you wear for,
hmm,
half marathon. My nutrition was all like screwed up.
right,
Anyways, I get to race day and I start feeling a little sick coming up to race day. And this is actually a pretty common theme, right? Because you're
yeah,
you're doing all that training, your white blood cells are kind of, low, and
yeah,
you're constantly in this kind of recovery. So I
right,
I I get sick like the week before the La Jolla Half Marathon, which is coming up in a couple of days here.
yeah,
And just show up anyways, right?
Hmm.
And I've got the fanny pack on, I've got the hat, I've got the like the sweatbands, like
Yeah.
just a total noob, right? Total noob.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is like 2006 or 2007. I can't remember
Right.
exactly what year.
Yeah.
Um, but they were actually giving out medals. There were other races like Carlsbad and AFC
Hmm.
that didn't even
Hmm.
give you a medal at that time. They give
Right.
you a little pin.
Right.
I don't know if you remember that, but
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
did get a medal. So anyways, so I show up at this race and I'm like sick. I've actually got a fever, right? I'm like 100
Yeah.
and something. I go through it.
Oof.
That particular year, it was pretty unique because that year, it was in April. It was the hottest recorded day in San Diego. And so I'm not only running with a fever, I'm cramping up. I so this is after you climb Torrey Pines,
Right.
you come back down into La Jolla Cove and then you start climbing again
Yep.
to get to the other side of La Jolla Cove, right? So the La
Yeah.
Jolla Shores
Yeah.
to La
Yeah.
Jolla Cove. And
Yep.
there's a couple of hills, right, to get
Yeah.
into Prospect.
Yep.
And there are houses that are kind of lined up as you're kind of climbing up to those back up to Prospect.
Yeah.
And in two separate driveways, there are two guys, two men, probably our age now, getting
Right.
their chests compressed.
Oh
They were
shit.
passed out.
Wow.
People were trying to revive them, and I'm looking over,
Yeah.
like, I'm like, what am I doing, dude? What am
Yeah.
I doing
Right.
here?
Right.
And I get to the finish line, I'm like, I'm never doing this again. Like, this
Yeah.
is this is crazy.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
crazy. Next thing you know, I sign up for AFC. Right, AFC turns into Carlsbad. Carlsbad turns
Right.
into Triple
Right.
Crown. And so that was kind of my journey, like
Yeah.
I went from like not wanting to do this, and kind of same thing with triathlon, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do this again, and then I end up
Yeah.
signing for another race and then another race.
Yeah.
Um, Now I know, like talking about La Jolla Half, right? You are a multi-year La Jolla Half finisher.
Yeah.
How many years have you completed the La Jolla Half, like in total?
I think 7 or 8. I had a streak going for a while.
You
So,
did, you did. I remember that.
yeah, yeah. I started off 2015 was the first year I did it. I did a
Yeah,
week after
yeah,
Boston, doing my first Boston. So,
right,
it sort of became the thing. Like,
right,
signed up. I did
yeah,
well with La Jolla Half, and I said, well, I'm doing Boston again in 2016. So let's sort of make this
right,
the
right.
Southern Cal version of Boston to Big Sur, but with a half,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
I streaked it out all the way up until, I don't know, 20 or 21 because pandemic, and then
right. Yeah,
been doing it since also too. So yeah, I got about seven or
yeah,
eight years
yeah,
that I've done it.
yeah.
So yeah.
And you're kind of the unofficial ambassador, right, of La Jolla
Yeah,
Half.
yeah, yeah. Because I started doing this like preview run from the shores to the cove to the finish line for
Right,
the same reason,
right.
because so many
Yeah.
people are like, I didn't know there was a hill at the end, and
Yeah,
you know, and so
right.
this is sort of like, hey,
Surprise.
there's surprise. Let me let
Yeah,
you know that at mile 12 you got another hill. So yeah,
yeah.
so
And it's
you're
not a
not
small
surprised.
hill either. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
exactly. So
yeah,
yeah, that's why I started doing these little preview runs for that race, and I used to work
yeah.
in the village, and that was sort of there was a gym that I worked out of that was in the
Right,
village, right off of
right,
Prospect, and so
right,
that
right,
was
right,
like my work backyard. So every time I had a
right,
break or I had some
right,
time to kill, I would run from the
right,
village over to Scripps Pier, the same route for the race,
right,
and back.
right,
And so I knew that was
right.
like I knew it like the back of my hand. It was like a quick 5 miles. I could get it
Yeah,
done in an hour.
yeah. Right,
And so
right,
when I signed up initially for La Jolla, it was like, well, why not? I'm already running half the course already on my regular,
right,
you know,
right, right,
every other day run. So why not run
right,
the race in my work backyard? So
right, right,
yeah,
right, right, right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Well, dude, I know you mentioned Boston. I do want to get to that, but before
yeah,
we get to Boston, you also
yeah,
mentioned that you worked at a gym in La Jolla.
yeah.
How did you end up working at a gym? So you talked about your kind of music industry
Yeah.
career, then transitioning to movies,
Hmm.
and then you landed in a gym. Like how did that transition happen?
So long story short, I moved to LA because, music industry, Napster, all that stuff. I got laid off. My
Right.
girlfriend and
Right.
I, who's now my wife, she was living down here in San Diego and
Okay.
I was still in the Bay Area. So we were doing a long distance thing for a few years, and at some point we're like, what are we
Right, right,
doing?
right.
So,
Right,
uh,
right.
you know, so we decided to
Right.
meet in LA. I got a job working at Sony Pictures, and and so we lived in LA for a couple of years because that was the halfway spot. I didn't want to move home. She
Right.
didn't want to move to the
Right.
Bay,
Right.
so
Right,
LA.
right, right.
Um,
Right.
Eventually got married, and then convinced me to move back home because
Yeah.
everybody's here. Her family's here, my family's here.
Right, 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 right.
So I ended up taking a job with a video game company, doing marketing for them,
Okay.
and at some point got burnt out. I was in charge of $1 million budget, managing
Yeah.
retail stuff. The retail
Yeah.
marketing manager for North
Right, right, right.
America, Canada,
Right.
South America, and so I got
Right.
burnt out from traveling for work and doing 16-hour days with a really poorly managed company. While I
Right, right,
got
right.
into racing,
Right.
I had a good friend of mine that really kicked it all off. She was my roommate in college, high school friend, part of my clique. And
Okay.
she ended up getting brain cancer. I want to say like
Oh, yeah.
'06, and
Yeah.
you know, literally had to learn how to walk and talk again after the first,
Yeah. Yeah.
tumor removal. And she was supposed to be part of our wedding, and just finished her master's and all that, and then the cancer came back,
Yeah.
and she didn't get
Yeah.
back from that. So
Right, 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 right.
that really hit. That hit hard because again, that was like my play sister. You know what I mean?
Right, 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 right.
There's a big hole when she passed, and that was '08, like June of '08, and some point in like early '10, I'm like, you know what? I need to do something for her, and so I signed up for a marathon. I ended up doing Vegas Rock and Roll, and I was like, if she could
Straight up,
do,
like you didn't do a half marathon or a 5K before that. You were like, I'm signing up for a marathon.
I did a 5K. I was
Okay.
slowly getting back.
All right, all right,
I was on the
all
slow
right.
crawl to like getting my health back because
Okay,
I
okay.
didn't have the health scare of like bad
Right,
blood work. I wasn't even going to the doctor,
right, right, right,
but
right.
at some point I was like stepping on the scale and I'm like, dude, I'm getting close to 200 pounds, right? And again, I graduated
Yeah,
college at about
yeah.
150. And I was like,
Right,
either I can
right,
look
right,
like a
right,
lineman or a linebacker, right? If I'm going to be 200
right,
pounds, like
right,
how do
right,
I want
right,
this
right,
to look? So I
right,
said, well,
right,
let's look
right,
like a linebacker. So I started getting in the gym and
right.
running here and there. And I
Okay.
signed up
All
for,
right, all right.
Carlsbad 5,000. That was my first
Okay.
race ever.
All right.
But
Okay.
shortly after that, again, it's 2010, and she passed away, and so I decided to sign up. She had already passed away, so I signed up for Vegas Rock and Roll when they used to have a full,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
yeah, 5K the marathon. So didn't even know halves existed. I don't think didn't know nothing about
Yeah.
Boston, none of that stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah.
ran that, and that really sort of got me in. I ran it, bucket listed it. That was one and done sort of
Yeah.
thing, but
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
stuck this time.
Right.
I'm
Right. Right.
32
Right.
now. I already did the triathlon at 25, so like 7 years
Right.
passed, and I'm
Right.
like,
Right.
for whatever reason, it stuck. And I think because there was a purpose behind it, because
Yeah. 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 You had a
because
why.
yeah, I had a why. What's your why?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it stuck, and so I kept up with it, trying to manage, work travel and busy work schedule. So by 2013, I was done. I was done with working for that company, and I quit, or like 2012 probably.
Yeah.
Quit and decided, well, what am I going to do next? And I'm 35, at the time, and I'm like, midlife crisis. Like, I don't. Why am I switching
Yeah.
careers?
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do? I
Right.
got,
Right. Right.
I've already
Right.
put 15 years in the game of this, and what am I?
Right.
What's next?
Right.
And I had already been running and coaching people on the low here and there, and
Right.
involved
Right.
in
Right. Right.
running and racing and sports, and getting back into try and all that stuff, doing Spartans. And I asked my wife, I said, well, what if I got into the training thing? And she was like, yeah, why not? And
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
molded over it, and I was like, can I? I'm old. I'm 35. I'm old, quote unquote. You know, I'm
Right.
35. This is a young man's game, right?
Oh, yeah.
But
Right.
that sort of kicked it off. I was like, why don't
Right.
we do it? So I got certified, and got a job at, big box gym and started working there. And
Right.
that kicked off,
Right.
where I'm at now. So,
Right.
yeah,
Right. Yeah. Super interesting journey, especially that last part that you're talking about. You're 35. You know, man, I hate to say it, but for a lot of men, right, coming from our backgrounds,
yeah,
that is the midlife point, right?
yeah,
35. Like both of my
mm-hmm,
grandfathers, I talk about it in a previous
yeah,
episode.
mm-hmm,
Like both of my grandfathers passed away, one before he was 65, another one
mm,
around 71, right? And
mm-hmm,
35 is the midlife. And I had
yeah,
a very similar, kind of experience where I'm 35 and I'm like, what am I going to do?
right,
And that's about right when I started coaching. I got my certifications and other things. I became a bike fitter. I
right,
was pretty much living two lives, right? I had
yeah,
my everyday job working at my desk job, and then at night I was Coach Mark, right? And
right,
that's how people
right,
knew me for now,
yeah,
like for a couple of decades, right?
yeah, yeah,
So now, like you're working at a big box gym,
mm-hmm,
you've got a couple of races under your belt. Now let's transition into Boston, right?
mm-hmm,
I think that's one of the most fascinating things about you. Now I know like Boston, that's not everything about you, right?
yeah,
I know that because I've worked with you. You're not just like holding up this Boston, like I've done Boston like X amount of times, kind of
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of metal, right? But I think for a lot of people, like Boston is something to strive for. Like I'm
right,
still trying to get there, right?
yeah,
And I think it's just a matter of timing. Like I know
right,
I'll get there. I just need to put the time in, and it's the
mm-hmm,
timing's got to be right.
right, right,
Um, how did you like decide like, hey, I'm gonna try to qualify for Boston,
yeah,
and not just qualify once, but you've qualified now like 5 or 6 times, right? Like, well,
9,
tell us that story a little.
yeah.
9 times. Okay, sorry.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, I had been running Vegas Rock and Roll. That became like the annual marathon because it's
Okay.
Vegas. It's at night. It
Right.
was,
Right. Right.
all the,
Right.
a lot of homies were
Yeah.
getting on
Oh,
the running
super fun.
kick,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
like, let's run it back.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
2013, this is my third time running that race. Uh, Probably my fourth or fifth marathon overall. And like, um, my stepdad and I were having a conversation because my parents would go out for this race too. So we're driving to Vegas and we're having a conversation. He's like, he's always saying I could win a race, right? And I'm like, dude, I'm 35, like that, and like I know I can't
Yeah.
win a race, like I know where my
Right. Right.
talent
Right.
lies. My
Right. Right.
stepdad,
Right.
he's just he doesn't know what we know. He's not that
Yeah.
involved in the
Yeah.
sport,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
But
Right.
he's
Right.
like,
Right. Right.
and he's old school blue collar guy,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
pipe fitter for the gas company and stuff. You know what I mean? So
Right.
like
Right.
but he used to power lift and stuff, and he's just a barrel of a man, right? Just built like a freaking
Right.
ox, and
Right.
knows nothing about running. But we're
Right.
having this conversation. He's like, Mijo, you can win this race. I said, he's like, why not? You work just as
Yeah.
hard as them. You train just as much
Yeah.
as the
Yeah.
pros. Like you could,
Right. 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 Right.
um, and so I don't know if something in that stuck, but you know, my previous fastest race, I think I ran like my first marathon, I did a 3:27. And that's sort of helped me to want to like pursue the sport because I was like, hey, 8-minute pace, like not bad my first time out. So,
Yeah.
but
Right. Right.
I had
Right.
gotten injured and times were getting slower and I was, just up and down with the
Yeah.
times. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
like I said, well, what's the worst that can happen? So I went for it and I paced with the 3:15 pacer,
Okay.
way faster than I'm,
Right.
training that I was
That
capable
you
of that I
trained
thought.
for. Yeah.
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 And somehow I'm holding on with the pace group the whole race,
Yeah.
and we get to like mile 22, 23. We're heading back towards a strip. And I'm like, dude, this guy is too slow. Like, like I'm feeling great.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
decided like, let's go. Let's pull the trigger. And I
Yeah.
pull the trigger and
Yeah.
I take off. And
Yeah.
I end up finishing like 311 and change or something,
Jeez. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, I'm feeling great. And my buddy's like, oh my God, they're like, great job, this, that, and the third. And he's like, oh my God, like you could almost qualify for Boston. And I was like, well, what's Boston? Like I had no
Yeah.
clue,
Right. Right.
you know,
Right. Right.
and,
Right. Right.
so did the homework, figured out, what Boston was and how big it was. And I said, well, I could shave a minute off. And so, that was the blind goal of like, let's shave a minute and
Wow.
change off. And so
Wow.
train for the Ventura Marathon, the old course,
Yeah. Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
following
Yeah.
year,
Right.
and qualified in 2014, and got in with like 50 seconds to spare underneath the qualifier, and
Right. Right. Right.
ran
Right.
it in 2015. So
Dude, that's awesome, man. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
So now you qualify for Boston. You obviously make it to Boston, right?
yeah.
What was that like first experience like?
Uh, Cold, wet, and rainy. 2015 was
Yeah. Yeah.
probably one of the worst years to run Boston. That wasn't
Yeah.
2018 because
Yeah.
you know I knew nothing. I'd never been to Boston before.
Right.
First
Right.
time
Right. Right.
there. Didn't know what
Right.
to expect.
Right.
And so didn't left my throwaways clothes at home, forgot to bring them, so I'm
Right.
doing the last minute trip to Ross to buy some sweats and whatever. And it's freezing out
Yeah.
there. We're
Yeah.
soaked.
Yeah.
It's raining
Yeah.
from start to finish.
Yeah.
I bought a rain jacket at the expo,
I
which
remember that picture. I remember that picture. I remember that picture on Facebook. I was like, what is going on here? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
because it was so
Yeah.
cold and like
Yeah. Right.
I was already working for a running shoe company, and like I didn't want to
Right.
buy the full price jacket because I'm like I know what
Yeah.
the markup is, but I have no
Right. Right.
choice because
Right.
it's
Right.
cold, and I'm gonna freeze out
Yeah.
here. I'm a San Diego
Yeah.
kid,
Yeah.
but ran it,
Uh,
and I ended up running really well, surprisingly, in the
yeah.
rain and the cold and everything. I ran
Right.
like a
Right.
305. I PR'd, and I'm like,
Jeez.
yeah, I ran
Wow. And
305 like
Boston's
oh
a hilly
04.
course too,
The
right?
back,
Boston's a hilly course. It's not.
it's a net downhill, so you kind of work your way down the first half,
Right. Right.
and
Right.
then
Right.
16 to 20 you're doing you're terracing up for 4 miles. You go up maybe about a half
Right.
mile and then flatten out,
Right.
up again,
Right.
flatten out. So you're doing that, and then
Right.
it's a net downhill the last 10K. But so not an easy course,
Right. Right.
but I thought I had it figured out, but no, I didn't.
Jeez.
I got humbled the following year because because the marathon gods will humble you, and
Yeah, for
I, I
sure.
I
For
I
sure.
didn't put in as much work when I ran it in 2016, and the weather was really hot that year because Boston is unpredictable.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so 2016 was really hot, complete opposite of the previous year, and
Right.
just died on that course the following year. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think it was so I qualified in 2016 for 2017, I think it
right,
was. And I want to go back to what your stepdad said to you about like Mio, like you can win this race, right? I think our
yeah,
parents, like that they work really hard, like you were saying about your stepdad and your
yeah,
mom probably too,
yeah,
and my parents know nothing about like triathlon or marathons, and they
yeah.
have the same assumption too, is like, did you win?
Hmm.
Kind of thing.
Hmm.
And I've been fortunate, man. I've been fortunate enough to, have good enough fitness to be able to like
Yeah,
stand on the podium.
right.
And I've won a couple of races, and it feels
Nice.
good to be able
Yeah.
to do that. But the one thing I still have not been able to do is get to Boston. So I've qualified, but I do
Yeah.
want to tell the story to everybody about how I qualified for Boston. So
Hmm.
Joe and I had already started our gym, Performance Strength Lab. And so
Yeah.
I was in the gym every single day, doing the work that I needed to do. Getting to Boston was my primary goal. So I
Right.
kind of put the cycling and the swimming kind of aside to really just focus on Boston,
Hmm.
qualifying for Boston, and I qualified at Mounts to Beaches. I run
Yep.
into you either the day before at like bib pickup at the expo,
Right.
or it might have been the morning of.
Hmm.
And what you told me that at that moment was, dude, you just got to run 8.5 miles for the next 3 hours. And that
Right.
simple thing, I was like, yeah, that's all I've got to do is run 8.5 miles
Yeah.
for each hour the next 3 hours. And I
Right.
came in like at like 3:11, 3:12 or
Hmm.
something like 3 minutes. And we were talking about it, and you were like, I was like, dude, I don't know if that's gonna be enough. I was like, what? I came in 3.5 minutes
Yeah.
under a 3:15, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or more. And yeah, I didn't make the cutoff that year. And then
Yeah.
a few years later, I came back to try to make another attempt at it. But I just wanted to mention that, that bringing it back to just, that simple thing that you told me,
Hmm.
um, kind of got me into that mindset of just like focus on the one thing. Right.
Right.
And so this kind of transitions into how you coach as a coach, right? And
Yeah.
your everyday athletes. I've
Yeah.
experienced how you coach. I want you to talk to us about, the kinds of athletes that you're coaching right now. And
Hmm.
obviously you made a difference in my life. I was able to qualify for Boston that year. And then we worked together to qualify for Boston again,
Yeah.
here in Sacramento.
Yeah.
I think Sacramento's a great course. I might come back here to try to do it, but I think Mountains to Beaches is probably going to be the course that I qualify
Hmm.
at again. But
Hmm.
yeah, tell us a little bit about how you're kind of coaching and your style right now. I know you do a lot of virtual coaching as well. You just got off of 3 hours worth of calls, right, with your
Yeah.
clients. So yeah, walk us through it, man.
Yeah. I mean, I put all my information out there that I work predominantly with like endurance athletes, marathoners,
Right, right,
triathletes,
right,
ultra runners, all that stuff. But I got a good amount of people that don't run at all. That running
right.
is don't doing endurance sports is not their bag. Like they want to be like just healthy and fit, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and I always say like that's the big winner. That's the big win right there. Like, all the racing and medals and all that stuff. And it's really cool and I love it and I get it obviously, but that's the cherry on top. That's the icing on the cake of being healthy
Yeah,
enough to
absolutely.
to think about
Right,
wanting to tackle your first race and maybe fall
right,
into the ultra endurance sports trap.
right.
you know but at the end of the day, like, health is wealth. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
growing
absolutely.
up where we come from, I feel like, with all the gang stuff of the 90s and stuff, which was a real thing, like,
Yeah, for
we
sure,
know
for
people
sure.
that
Right,
died and got killed and
right, right.
got shot at and this and that. It was like, in the music scene with rap and hip hop, you think
Yeah,
about, I'll be lucky if I make it to 25, right? And for a
yeah,
lot of people, that was a
yeah,
real thing,
yeah, yeah, for sure.
for me, I was going to college, and I was running in the streets and doing stuff and being ignorant
Right,
and stupid, doing stupid things. So by the time you get to 30 or 35, like, you know, you you start realizing, well, I'm gonna be here for a while, you know.
right,
You know what I mean?
right,
Because
right,
like
right,
it
right,
clicks. You're like, I made it past
right,
25. Oh my gosh,
right,
Now I'm 30,
right,
now I'm 30, 35, and I'm married and like, your perspective changes, right? We grow up and I'm
right,
like,
right, right, right.
I feel like somewhere around 40, my early 40s, we started seeing another wave of,
Yep.
RIPs and
Right,
all
right,
this
right,
stuff with not necessarily, close friends, knock on wood, but
right, right,
friends of friends and people we sort of
right,
knew,
right.
and I keep seeing the same avatar, of
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
faces all look the same, the silhouettes are all the same. Like somebody that looks
right,
out of shape, you could kind of see the
right,
years taking their toll,
right,
of
right,
living the same hard life, not doing
right,
stuff, not moving, and that gets me. You know what I mean? I'm like,
right, right,
this is again, control your controllables. This is controllable.
right,
A lot of this
right,
stuff,
right,
where are we going as men, to be here for, our kids, our
right.
hopefully grandkids.
Exactly,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
And that's what really gets me with a lot of the people I train that aren't, endurance athletes. I try to drive that point home. I'm like,
Right,
like,
right,
what can we control? I know you got work. I know you have kids. I know you have busy family lives and this and that. But what can we carve out for ourselves? How do we, you know, are we winning? We may be killing it at work, but are we winning at life with
Yeah.
taking care of our kids
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
balancing the family life
Right.
um
Right.
and all that stuff? You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
it's great to
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
the promotions and the job and the
Yeah.
bonuses and all that sort of
Right,
stuff,
right,
but
right, right. Right.
at some point, will it ever be enough? And are you doing all the work to be around to enjoy what you're working for? And
Yeah,
enjoy
absolutely.
balancing your life out.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
think I think
Absolutely.
you're a great example of that. You know what I mean? Of balancing that out, of balancing your fitness, killing it at work, getting the promotions and doing all the stuff,
Yeah,
traveling,
yeah.
and but still making
Right,
time
right,
for it.
right.
So I
Right,
see
right.
it so many times across the board. So I know
Yeah.
it's possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
And
Right, right.
it's where do we find that mental shift to turn that corner to really like lean into that? And that's what I try to drive home with a lot of my non-endurance athletes, because I think the endurance athletes sort of have that already figured out. You know, like
Yeah, yeah.
we're in it, so we know how to manage it. But for those trying to like get there, it's a hard
Yeah.
nut to crack. And I get it.
It is. It is so much. I think about some of my friends, and I have I have a large group of friends, but there's a small group of us within that, a subset, within that big group that have done, half marathons, triathlons, marathons, and Ironmans. There are only a couple of us in our group that
Yeah,
have gone up to that level.
yeah,
But for my friends that don't do anything, these guys, we're athletes in high school, play basketball, pick up basketball here and there, play a little bit of
yeah.
golf. And one of my fears, is that I end up in a hospital room because this guy didn't do what he needed to do to take care of
Mm-hmm.
himself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I'm seeing that future for a lot of these guys, and that's
Yeah,
a lot of the reason why. And I know that they're listening to this podcast. I know they are,
yeah, yeah. I'm
and that's the
calling it.
reason why it
Yeah,
exists for sure.
yeah. If I'm talking to you, then I'm talking to you, right? Like,
Yeah,
if this
yeah,
if when you're
yeah,
listening to this, if you get
yeah,
offended or or you feel some sort of way about it, yeah, I'm talking to you,
yeah,
right? Like, I'm not gonna
absolutely,
put, I don't need to put
absolutely.
names out there, but you
Right,
know who I'm
right.
talking about,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah,
because we all
yeah,
know, we know those people, like either
yeah,
people you and I know collective together or
yeah,
our
yeah,
own groups of people.
yeah,
We see the
yeah,
same faces, and
yeah.
the avatar is the same across the board,
Right, 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 right. Yeah, and to be honest, I think all my friends, we're all pretty successful. Like we work really hard. 401k is is doing well, or as well as it
Yeah,
can be,
yeah,
whatever. But like check the bank,
yeah.
check the health and fitness bank too, right? The health and
Hmm.
fitness bank, that really is the bank that you want to invest in, because
Right.
that's what is going to make sure that you're around for your daughter and your son
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
their grandkids, right? And you get to enjoy life with your wife,
Right.
you know, 20, 30 years from now, right?
Right.
And so
Right.
that's a lot of why I talk about what I talk about.
Right.
Um a- and like the thing is so I'm actually also building this like fitness and health and fitness journal
Mm.
application. And I'm still developing it. It's kind of in its beta stage. And it's one thing to say, okay, I've done these workouts. It's another thing to kind of do this mental check-in,
Hmm.
right? I think as a coach, like your clients are so privileged to have you as a coach and be able to get like those mental check-ins. Like I could tell like from the transition that you were having like off the calls that you had this morning that you probably had a couple of like, mental check-in type situations, right, with some of these guys about how they're feeling,
Yeah.
because that's part of coaching. There are a
Right.
lot of people that don't have that, right? And so
Right.
that's kind of what I'm trying to create through this app is kind of checking in with themselves, and then also
Yeah.
like something prompts them to be like, "Hey, have you thought about this today?" And then kind of
Hmm.
start the day off on that positive note, and not just like
Yeah.
checking off the box, yeah, I worked out, but how did that workout make you feel,
You're right.
right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like
I
you
think,
said, it is a balance. It is a balance.
yeah, I think fitness is in a good place right now because I feel like, even 10 years ago, like a lot of stuff was still siloed. when you're talking about nutrition or your sleep quality, recovery, all the things, right? Like they were all separate things. But I feel like, the science and the data is backing it up where all those things really need to come to play. You know what I mean?
Right.
Together to
Right.
be fit, right? Because like,
Right.
if your sleep scores are horrible, then your cortisol levels are going up, and now you're putting on
Right.
weight even though you're putting in the work. And if you're,
Right.
you know, uh, you know, killing it during the week, with your nutrition, and then you're, just killing it on the other end on the weekends,
Right.
and that so now you're undoing all the progress because you're not learning the 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 rules that get taught and that people know is, especially when you do, like, I don't know, let's knock a transformation camp because they work, right? The
Right.
transformation camps
Right.
can
Right.
be a
Right. Right.
great thing if you actually
Yeah.
take the
Yeah.
knowledge away from it and apply it. So you're not having to
Right.
go back to a transformation camp in another
Right.
year because you put on all the weight. You know what I mean? Because like
Right.
there's
Right.
some
Right.
good
Right.
nuggets to learn, but you're not
Right.
retaining the knowledge. You're just going through the
Yeah.
steps. Like,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
feel like fitness is at a good place where all that stuff is like coming together with, whether it's with an Aura ring or, your health watch, your smartwatch, and all that stuff. Where, you know, we 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 know better, so we should do better with trying to manage it all as best as we can. You
Right.
you talk a great
Right. Right.
part
Right.
about
Right.
that,
Right.
about, like, hey, some days the body is not happy with you, and so like the workout
Right.
needs to reflect that, right? Or you're
Right.
mentally
Exactly.
not there because you're stressed with life. And so I do those
Right.
check-ins with my athletes, whether it's in person or online, because that reflects like what our workout may be for that day. Because if I'm like
Right.
seeing you're super stressed, or you're not feeling well, or you're sore or whatever, like, okay, how do we modify today's workout then to make it work for you? We can still get a workout in, but
Right.
maybe it's just,
Right.
it's not, it does,
Right.
every day doesn't need to be a hammer workout to
Right.
be effective,
Right.
you know?
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I know you've got to get on with the rest of your day. I want to ask you a couple of questions. So it's going to be
Yeah.
kind of like a quick hit kind of round, and then I want people to know how to get a hold of you because you're in San Diego. You're a local guy.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've got a big group of friends. I know that a few of them could use your help, so I want to make
Yeah.
sure that they know how to get in contact with you. But yeah,
Yeah.
let's start with some of these questions. So I feel like I know the answer to this, but I'll ask it anyways. So what's your favorite race?
uh Damn, that's a tough one. um
Is it really though?
I mean, I don't know, like, yeah, I guess you could say Boston. It's definitely the feels with Boston,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
also I still love doing Carlsbad 5,000.
Oh,
You
there
know
you
what I
go.
mean? Like,
Okay. Yeah,
because that was
yeah,
the
yeah.
one
There you
that
go.
kicked it off. That's like my
Right.
recommitment
Right.
race every year. I've done that race for like
Right.
16 years. So that's,
Wow.
like,
Okay.
I love
Very
the energy
cool.
that comes with it. A 5K
Yeah.
is freaking hard if you're
Yeah,
redlining it.
it's
Like you feel like you ran a marathon at the end.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I ran the 5K age group nationals on
Wow.
grass
Yeah.
at Mission Bay. Like I didn't run the fastest time because it was on grass, but
Yeah.
I don't know if I could have run any faster. 5Ks are hard. 5Ks are
They
so
are.
hard.
Yeah.
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 Oh, very cool. Okay. Um, favorite post run meal.
Mm. Man, I would say a good burger or steak. Like,
Yeah, there you go.
I
There you go.
or pizza, or
Yeah.
pizza. Like I'm craving the fat. I'm craving,
Yeah, yeah, the
you know,
salt. Yeah, yeah,
salt.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
burger, pizza,
yeah,
steak, maybe
yeah,
a whiskey or
yeah,
two,
yeah,
got to celebrate, balance.
yeah. There you go. All right, last question. Long run playlist, or do you just grind it out in complete silence?
I'm the psychotic.
Are you
I'm the
serious?
I'm the psycho.
Oh
Yeah.
my god. Oh my
I don't
god.
listen to music much on the runs.
Really?
Yeah, yeah,
That's crazy. That's
yeah.
crazy.
I raw
Yeah.
dog it, no music,
Oh,
me
dude.
and my thoughts.
Wow, wow. Honestly, I used to do the same thing too, because it is, it's that time away from everything. You just kind of
Yeah.
shut everything down. You're able to kind of, facilitate how to get through certain things. A lot of problem solving, that
Hmm.
you're doing it. And actually, I was telling one of my coworkers because she was working on something and she couldn't figure something out. I'm like, you know what, just go for a walk, or even like
Hmm.
even better, like go for a jog, and your brain will
Right.
just figure it out right as you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, well, cool, man. I appreciate your time. I
Yeah.
want to give you a couple of minutes to let people know how to get a hold of you. So let them know, man. Like, how do how do they reach you? Like,
Yeah.
email, phone, Instagram, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. You could definitely follow me on Insta, Facebook. I'm on most of the socials. It's Endurance Fitness Performance. I'm usually the first one that pops up when put that in your search box. You could email me info@endurancefitnessperformance.com. Uh, if you got my number, hey, I'm not gonna give it out here, but but
Yeah,
shoot me a message. Either way, I would love to work with people and sit down and talk with you about what fitness looks like for you, right? Because
awesome.
I think a lot of us are all past the you know, wanting to like walk around like a meathead kind of
Right,
phase in our life. But
right, right,
what does
right,
fitness look like? What does healthier look like for you compared to where you're at now? Because
right,
it's different for
right, right,
everybody,
right,
I think. Yeah.
right, right. Yeah, and again, I appreciate you, coming on. I know you've got a busy schedule, and a lot of the reason why I wanted to talk to you specifically is, I know you bring the kind of style in coaching where it's real. Like, you come from the same very, very similar background that I come from. We both grew up in the same neighborhood,
Yeah.
kind of, walked around the same circles, so to speak. And then you and I coached together for a
Yeah.
little bit, and then you coached me for CIM. Uh, and so, like, I know that there are a lot of athletes out there that are looking for their first step. Like, how do I get
Yeah.
started? And maybe it really is just a conversation, right? It's like,
Hmm.
John, here's what I want to do, and
Hmm.
obviously, like, no pressure, but I want you
Yeah.
guys to get in touch with John, or somebody, that you think could get you started off on the right foot, and
Yeah.
start to invest in that piggy bank, right? Start to
Yeah.
invest in
You're
in,
right.
in the health and fitness piggy bank, because that's what's really gonna, take you, down the long road in the long game.
Right.
So
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Totally, man. If it ain't me, that's fine. I get it. Right. Energy's got to match and all that stuff.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
dude, reach out, get the work done. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
we spend so much time or money doing stuff we don't know, fixing our cars
yeah,
or renovating our house, and right, we're already putting all this, you know, money because we don't want to do it ourselves. Fitness is no different. Like you can't
yeah,
master everything. So
right, exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly. All right, well, John, man, I'm gonna let you go. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon, and yeah, have a good trip. All right, see you. Bye.
peace.